Okay, and then I guess we're live now. Yeah. Shalom, brethren. Welcome all. And then, so we got CJ Cox here, the synagogue. And
Shalom.
and this is our weekly sort of meeting for anyone who's watching this video later. Heads up, this is not really like a video for an audience, but rather it's me and CJ meeting. So I came to some pretty stark alertness about some Marxist infiltrations in the church, and some my heart was struck really heavily about also some huge financial scandals that like people don't even care about. So all this money that should be for God's kingdom is just going where Satan wants it to go instead. And so I think it's pretty serious stuff, but seems like people are wrapped up a lot more in their own heads or in all these different sort of pet perspectives on the kingdom or something. I just want us to get into the agreement that is in Christ in the church, and then to start actioning some stuff. Like this is obviously a wake-up call. So what's the church's real response to the wake-up call? So I don't know. Me and CJ, we can only do our own part. So that's why this meeting isn't really for audiences, but it's just for us to do our part. But it can also be for audiences if you're interested in, the two of us brothers talking about doing our part in all this. So I think I've come to a lot of clarity because CJ has patiently gone through, maybe this is our 4th week now of actually getting together. And then I think we missed one last week, or 3rd.
Yeah, 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, and so, oh yeah, and I don't feel good. So there's no one. It looks like there's one person here. I don't think that's me. So I appreciate you being here. But also whoever's watching perhaps later. I don't feel good. So I'm going to be stopping to think sometimes probably. But, we gotta persevere and do the things. So yeah, that was another wake-up call I had, was that whole thing with Simone Biles, where they make a big deal out of her being such a champion because she quit. And then now we see the quitting going on in Afghanistan, right? And I think they want like people to feel okay about quitting, like we'll just give up on this whole good future thing and we'll let them do their great reset dystopia, we'll just give up. And it's like we eventually want to give in, so it's like a justification of giving in. And sort of like I think we got to think more along the lines for us of going down with a sword to our throats, and maybe that's especially befitting to the reference I made about quitting in regards to Afghanistan. And I don't mean because there is a pullout. I mean like not bothering to do it like America does. And it's not that they're not bothering. I think it's exactly intentional what they're doing. They're like doing, I think they're a shill, right? They're a shill for the global deep state, the American federal government. And I think it is like a pro wrestling act, And yeah, I don't necessarily think that Donald Trump is at all against the globalism. That's another topic. So I became alert to a bunch of things. I think I've sorted out a lot of things. It's actually a lot less about politics. I was getting lost on a tangent there. But it's a lot more about church agreement is sort of my big focus. And then I've done a lot of sorting out the things that I want to do. And really appreciate you, Janet. And yeah, I don't know exactly how that connects to what I was saying. I might have forgotten what I was saying, but I do know how all the biblical truths really tend to relate to each other. And for me, one awareness of truth being talked about will bring other ones to mind. So I'm sure it comes in somehow. So thanks for being here, sister. And yeah, please rest. I think I'm less fiery than usual, so it'll be more relaxing. So, brother CJ, you can help me kind of try to stay on task, or well, I have a few documents here I can start going through with some of my ideas. One thing to start with might be the short list that I emailed you, where I tried to sort of summarize it down in brief.
Mm-hmm.
If you recall the email I'm speaking of,
Yeah.
and I hope it wasn't part of some huge series. Maybe it was part of this one. No, this is this series. Okay, here's this part. This is more. Oh, so CJ, let's talk a little bit about the stream we're gonna do tomorrow, and yeah, you can start talking about it, and I'll chime in. And meanwhile, I'll find what I'm looking for.
Well, I was just thinking of potentially doing a stream on some of the things that we were seemingly having a. What would you consider that? I don't know. I guess butting heads per se, like the.
Well, I don't think we're butting heads, but we disagree in important ways on some things. And one thing is a lot of it has to do with the matter of the specific decisions I'm making for myself regarding standards. And, so then, and yeah, so I've been rather hopeful that like I won't be earthly alone in things, as I'll sort of be with you. But it's kind of like I'll just have to see how that goes, because I think my ministry is sort of a strictness of standards ministry. So it puts me in an especially precarious spot where like I have what seem to other people to be kind of absurd pickinesses about standards, but I'm like, I just think these are basic church standards. And so like for me, ministry in the church needs to respect the standards, you know what I mean? Whereas obviously with people on an individual level, that's sort of a different thing. But we can't really like let the ministries in the church fall apart like because of individual grace kind of a thing, you know what I mean? So if that's sort of making sense. So I got this like standards obsession at the moment, because I think we could do things to these better standards that Jesus gave us, and he empowers us to do them. That's like the power of God and stuff. And so I'm eager for like people to be on board. Yeah. And we can talk about which standards those are. But yeah, so that's sort of where it comes to like, it's not that we're butting heads, it's that I have put, what I'm doing puts me in a precarious situation unless I reinterpret what I'm doing or something, which I can only do my honesty with God. So I don't know if that's where I'm going to head or not. But yeah, so I wouldn't describe it as butting heads. It's sort of like my issue that you got sort of pulled into. But I want you to have like the best of standards, because well, it would be good. I know that's what you want, and I know that like you're so capable, and it's kind of like, if not CJ Cox, then who? So that's sort of my attitude. It's like, besides me, if not CJ Cox, then who? Is there anyone else? But it's like, that's not really on you, you know, that's my thing. So I know that was a weird way to, or a very disorganized way to address it, but I think I conveyed the idea.
Yeah, and I would, you just say as far as like for, if anybody's interested in it, basically the idea is just, there's probably 3, 4, maybe a little bit more than that topics where we have seen some level of disagreement recently, and it's just nothing more than us wanting to sort of hash that kind of stuff out. Because it's important things to hash out. Obviously, Proverbs 27 says iron sharpens iron for a reason. It's not just speaking into the wind when it says that. So I think it'd be a good thing to do. And some of the things are things that other people have voiced similar concerns on. So you wouldn't be like either person speaking necessarily strictly for themselves, although obviously each individual can only speak for themselves. But so I just figured it'd be a pretty good edifying conversation to have. Talk about things like like I said, branding.
Okay, I don't know if the audience heard you when I was disconnected. I guess they did, right? I was the only one dropped.
I'm not 100% sure. I guess I wouldn't be able to know.
I was dropped because of my end, so they should have heard you
for sure.
And I was babbling in case they were hearing me. I was trying to the StreamYard display does this weird thing where one of the things that should stop displaying stays there, and then it tempts me to click it because I clicked it earlier. Sorry. So go on, brother. So you were laying it out for the audience, though. I heard you were discussing disagreements about your branding. Yeah, so we're going to discuss all that stuff tomorrow, though.
Yeah,
so,
that's all for tomorrow.
So that'll be on CJ. That'll be on your Unapologetics channel. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah. Refund apologetics, probably like a. I wasn't sure exactly how much. So far, I know of 4 topics that I want to talk about. So if we went, say, 15 minutes to 25 minutes per topic, that would be anywhere from.
We'll see how possible that is.
Yeah, exactly. Because who knows?
I can be a lot more focused than I am for this sort of a meeting. So, in that sense, it'll be fine.
Yeah,
I do get into that topic focus mode. I'm capable of that.
Yeah, and of course, I would just, and I'm going to say this, of course, at the beginning of the episode tomorrow, but just to remind everybody that there are disagreements in Scripture that are at the level of Paul rebuking Peter to his face, but there's also disagreements in Scripture that are at the level of John Mark and or is it Barnabas, one of the two, and Paul. They just part ways amicably and go and do their separate ministries. And then there's even disagreements that are even less than that, where it's just people just have certain disagreements about, obviously I won't list all the things because that's what the episode is for tomorrow. But they just sort of continue on. I think John Mark hated Barnabas. One of the two is the first that I mentioned, and the other of the two is the one I just mentioned.
This I'll mention because it's really on topic for the kind of stuff we're talking about for the meeting too. It's where the intersectionality, right? No, but where it intersects, and that's that. Sorry, I went to make a stupid joke, and I don't have as much mind as I usually do. I'm bad enough at multitasking anyway. So you were just talking about the meeting we'll have tomorrow, and
And just basically to say to everybody to just not like
the types of disagreements. Yeah. So yeah, that's one thing I want to talk about is you and I are both big perspicuity of Scripture guys, and then there's plenty of stuff about how false teaching is to be opposed for the purity of teaching and for the sake of the flock, and that's a different thing than being judgmental about someone sins or something, so because that's one thing people often cite rebuking Peter to his face, but Peter wasn't teaching a false teaching. He was like, giving in to a sort of social pressure and social fear, and sitting only with certain people as a matter of, the traditions of the Jews. He was only sitting with the Jews because he was fearful of the social response on whatever level. We don't know exactly what it was, and Paul didn't know exactly what it was, but he felt it was important that the bad example that was being set, that like it be set straight. So Paul took the opportunity while he was there to rebuke Peter to his face, which made a noticeable thing of it for everyone, so that it could really set it straight, which was good. But there's not this, of Paul's teaching. There's plenty of verses that specifically talk about that. So some of these different standards, it's like, I know you're serious about them, and then it seems in certain places like you're squishing certain places where you shouldn't be, and then you criticize other people for being squished all over the place. And perhaps it's better to only be squishing a couple spots. But so I mean that's just me trying to put it into few words. Obviously it's not the. But I think you get you. I think you follow. I think you hear the language.
Yeah, I certainly know what you mean, and I can leave everything that I've personally said so far at that, because obviously we got a whole episode to hash out details and stuff.
Yeah. So my point right now is that it's about some of these standards kinds of things that I'm pretty passionate about right now. So oh yeah, I still didn't find that email. I literally forgot I was looking for it. But I mean, it couldn't have been very long ago, right? And this one with this list of points. Well, it might have been right after what would have been last week's episode. So maybe it's part of this list and I somehow missed it. No, it was what I told you about last week's episode, that just so everyone knows, CJ's internet and stuff was so down that I guess you couldn't even use your phone to like text me and let me know, that kind of a
It
thing.
was actually, so not only was my internet down completely and I got a new modem, but also my phone at the exact same time was damaged completely. I thought I was going to have to text you with an entirely new number, but I managed to at least keep the same number. So it was a whole sort of revamp in a way of everything that was over here.
Okay, cool. And I did honestly miss those details because I found what I'm looking for. So normally, like, I can sort of double task my mind if I'm like dealing with things I'm well prepared with. But my mind's really not double tasking right now because I don't feel well. So I'm going to go ahead and share the email. If I can find it. I did it the wrong way. Share Microsoft Edge tab. That'll make it easy. Okay. So I'll zoom in some. So here is the way I tried to break down a lot of this in sort of a simple way. So I wish I could get it to display in a way where this left thing would vanish when you zoom in enough. You'd think they would know that at a certain point of zooming in, you want to zoom in on just the letter. But, they're only Google, so they don't really have the money to hone it in very nicely. But so here is the list. The list of what? Just like I would like you to add. I don't necessarily. I'll just read this email. Yeah, there's nothing personal in it. It's about this kind of stuff. Here is the breakdown. I don't intend to delve into each point, just to present them and maybe mention a few key things. For example, in terms of counter-Marxism, I intend to mention that judgment must begin in the house of God, and so we must address woke church, which also ties in with church agreement. So these are reference points for later. So I would like you to add church agreement and truly Christian political option and counter Marxism to your list. So I see now I probably should have put this after the list. You were probably wondering what I was talking about when you were reading all this. I would like you to add church agreement and truly Christian political option and counter Marxism to your list. So that's a pretty big request of things to be a part of. So I just bumped my right mouse button, but I know how to find this one pretty quick this time. So, okay, here's the breakdown. I would like you to add those things to your list. So just a heads up that I will be requesting that of you and that I'll be hoping for your agreement after you are properly sure. And now I think that's where things have kind of changed, is it's like, well, let's hash out these disagreements. And they're where we agree, but then somehow we still disagree in there. So that's definitely worth hashing out. So, but yeah, hash out that stuff first before we really decide to be doing stuff together. But this is all important stuff for everyone to be aware of and to do their best with, regardless of exactly how we decide to execute ministry in the future. And I think it'll evolve over time, you know. I mean, some of these things, it just takes time for certain things to go a certain way, and then so who knows what the future is like. If there's some things that need ironing out, then maybe they have to be ironed out in God's time. But so here's the list, which I will read off at the meeting, and we can talk about after I have shown you cool stuff. Oh, I forgot to show you the cool stuff. And so please feel free to hold me to the focus I have outlined here in this letter, and I shall properly aspire to hold myself to it first. Okay, so now it's time to hold to focus, because that's what it says in this letter. See, I was much better prepared last week. Last week was the most prepared I ever was for one of these meetings, and then we didn't get to have it. So, okay, all things God willing. Okay, here's that list. Major needs we will address, God willing. So, agreement of the church project. So that's one that I was hoping CJ would be a part of, but obviously that requires us hashing out agreement. Counter Marxism project. Now, that goes hand in hand with the True Justice Project, which is the counter to social justice. So I'm not able to edit it because it's a done deal kind of email. It's not one I'm writing. I'm so used to writing these, right? Offer the truly Christian political option. So this is like, I really think we should be looking at someone like John Harris or A.D. Robles as a candidate. John Harris has a level head in political awareness, and he's not naive at all to any sort of corruption or deception or anything. And then AD is more shrewd, but less of like a level-headed. But, you know, AD is more like Trump sort of thing. So, except that AD is like Christian, and you know, I don't know if, like, you know, I don't know what actually happens when you put like a real person, real Christian into the White House, you know, like I don't know what that does to the system. I don't know if the system has any way to, like, if that cartridge fits into that console, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just the Republicans are just the second foot of the same body walking the same direction, and it's like we don't expect them to take what we offer, but it's right that what we offer is sufficient, and rather than us just offering that we compromise with them by voting with the Republicans, so long as they're enough not as bad as the Democrats. So the worse the Democrats get, the worse the Republicans are allowed to get, and like no, it's gone far too far for Christianity to go that way. So what do you think about that, CJ? This, what I was just saying and all that, in a quick way. Like, I was pretty quick there.
I don't know. Like I said, like I've said earlier, I mean, obviously at this point, my knowledge of A.D. Robles is greater than it was, but But I do think it is very important to get a solid conservative option that is based in a Christian conservatism, not just a merely floating conservatism, and we don't seem to have that at the moment.
Oh yeah, that's something I wanted to suggest to us too, is like a polemics approach, right? Because I've started sort of taking it with the conservatives, like, yeah, this is the sort of compromise we'd get from a Romanist, like Matt Walsh's channel, that kind of thing, like really just like conservatism only belongs to like real gospel Christianity, and that's just the way it is. And it's like the rest of them are just pretenders, and it's like, if this is like a time of like this controversy and stuff, we can have fun with it and like sort of be bold about it without like being malicious or anything, But it's like it is just pretending though, conservatism, like and we see it really bad. Matt Walsh was just saying some things that were especially untrue. Well, he was saying that sex work is not real work, which is fine to say. I'm all on board there. But he said because real work is skilled, and he made that like the crux of his argument. And it's just like, I've been paid for doing noble work that was just completely unskilled, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, if we're going to talk about like the arts and stuff, then like if you're going to try to argue in that sort of secular arguing stupid kind of a way, then they're going to have counter arguments to that kind of nonsense, that like, yeah, so it was just like you have this topic that's easy to address and like you just totally blow it for no reason. And I think they're controlled opposition over there at Daily Wire anyway, so I guess like gears, they're shifting gears as to like, they had to sort of win us over by being more truthful than the left for a while there, but now things are like looking up politically in some sense for the right or whatever, so they're like playing the game different now. It's all this pro wrestling shill stuff, I think, it's all theater so that they can try to make the global reset happen. The only defense is the people. And there's a lot of us who know that, which is why Donald Trump was saying he sides with the people. And he can side with the people in a lot of ways in America to sell it. But ultimately, like, the globalist thing was still happening. And I could be wrong, but I just don't think Donald Trump was actually opposing that. I think he works for them as well. And that's just my take. But yeah, I know I interrupted you because the polemics thing, right? So I was like, we could take that approach more often with some of this sort of in-house-ish kind of stuff, like with James White trying to say he's not a fundy, It's like, come on with that nonsense that you say you're not a fundy, Or like people who say they are fundamentalists, but then they're like, drinking alcohol is a sin, even though the Bible says that it's only circumstantially a sin, And so it's just like, you're not a fundamentalist then, because that's not how fundamentalists like do doctrine, They don't just like make stuff up for tradition or whatever. That's literally not what fundamentalism is. So it's like, as long as we're going to say James White is one, we can call out like when other people are not being a fundamentalist, So I don't know. I just think like a polemics approach to some of this stuff might be fun, and useful.
Yeah, definitely. I understand that.
But I also know CJ, just share it with the audience real quick, is like interested in the Constitution Party, which I am down for like even Republican candidates. If they want to like seriously step up to standards and stuff, then like, we don't have to have the only thing that we do with our political party be that we have our own candidates. We can also have a group of votes that we can then endorse candidates from other parties, if they'll meet us far enough along the way of the direction that we got to go according to Christ. So then that's a big thing because that depends on the agreement of the church, right? The political party has to be the agreement of the church party. And like, we can't let other people like play around all their nonsense in there. I mean, I know it just sounds rude, but I don't even know what else to say about it, you know?
Right.
So, and then the Biblical Timeline Project. This is cool. So, I think I can show you a graphic for that. Because this is pretty meaningful. And I don't think I really gave you any explanation at all whatsoever to what that is. Is that right?
I don't remember ever having one.
And yeah, unfortunately, I gotta find it like here. So I probably called it timeline or something. Maybe I already saw the document and it's so huge I didn't notice what I was looking at. Because, you know, a small thumbnail of a huge picture is just gonna look like everything in it's tiny. So I'm not sure where to find it, but it's really cool. I'm graphically sorting out the biblical timeline and getting my head around it, but it's a lot deeper than that, and that's what makes it like so cool. Is like not only will it be this digital graphic that can be browsed, and oh, good to see you here to Hate Love Nothing and Cheryl. Hello, welcome. So you have similar colors, which is why I thought I was looking at the same person as I scrolled past. But as you know, I'm terrible about being able to read comments during the stream. I'm glad to see you. Okay, so this Biblical Timeline Project. It'll be the graphics, and there'll be one set of the timeline will be how we follow it through the Bible. And I don't know if there's gaps there. But then there's also how we follow it through history, lining it up with the correct archaeological pharaoh being associated with the pharaoh of the Exodus to get everything lined up correctly, you know? So lining up that historical timeline according to how we line it up, according to our interpretation of the evidences, which are valid interpretations, just for the record. But and then another one of the timeline will be like more complete biblical events, but not necessarily like this is how we can follow the timeline with basics, you know? And but one of them is going to be strictly like what the evidences are. So that's the one I was already talking about with like the historical events, but it'll have to be split into two because one will be like, you know, here's historical events through the 6,000 years of history, right? But then the other one, well, there's not going to be much in the way of events from before the flood. We don't have much evidence of any of that, but there'll be some discussion of the evidence from that era and what we think is from that era and stuff, which I don't know much about, so I'd have to look into that, of course. Which that's the point, right? To just keep adding to this and like to just keep adding to the actual like it's this archaeological site by this name, this artifact from there that now is held in this facility here, that was found in this place that we say connects to this for this, you know, so like really like the exact evidence, you know, this cuneiform tablet said this, or, you know, we're probably less into that stuff than a lot of other people are, but it comes into play. Or this manuscript says this, and we associate as having been, well, it would be more like all the evidence pieces, and then it'd probably be more something like an accompanying book that would talk about how it all comes together. Because the timelines are more data point than like long explanations, but you get the idea. So it's like it's not merely a graphical representation project. It's also like, look, this is where you can go and be like, here is the evidence in the most useful way, you know? So yeah, the Biblical Timeline Project. I'm excited about that one.
It definitely sounds like it'd be really cool, actually.
Yeah, so over time we can see about how we can like progress on that. And what's cool about that is as long as like I'm not like, you know, this is making the timeline through whatever information we find and stuff, and so it's not, I don't know, it'd be pretty easy to work together on this, you know, where we have a lot of agreement on the timeline and stuff. And I think we would come to the same results on all these things on the timeline. I think it would be incredibly rare for us to be like, well, we think this evidence points to something different, and I think that would be true also of Jonathan Sheffield. So I don't know if there'll be any cooperative efforts there in the future, but just having possibilities in mind, because that's how you get places, right? Are you on mute or something? Yeah, you are.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. I don't know if you really had anything to say, or should I go? The next one's just my own project, Greek Access Bible Project, which I've gone into before, and I'll lay out in detail soon. I'm going to do a prototype of just one chapter so that I have a prototype done sooner. And I can do some like preliminary funding. And then I got to get the other 4 chapters done. And then that'll be a whole book. And then I'll know more about the pace. I won't really know that much about the pace because by the time I get done with the 5 chapters, I want to have gotten all the protocols exactly right so that I'm not redoing my work later. So that when I go through the rest of the New Testament, I don't have to go back and change everything because I wasn't doing it the right way. So I've been spending literally years getting ready to do it the right way. And yeah, that's exciting stuff. So I'll leave it at that. But so that's major needs we will address, God willing, and then major needs to consider accounting for. So this is like stuff that I'm not necessarily seeing as our place, but I think it is stuff that's important out there, and properly, sufficiently, purely Christian complete curriculum. So that's my the Christian Clarity project that I want to do. And yeah, so that actually is something that I would like to address. So it could go on this list, but it's not going on the plate yet, It's like if nothing happens before that, then there's nothing leading to that. So one thing at a time. But yeah, that is ironic that I put that there. Sufficiently systemized Hebrew scholarship for the lay masses. So it's like the Hebrew version of Greek Access Bible kind of a thing. The Hebrew parallel needing to meet that need. And I know someone who wants to do something like that, but I don't know how good they are for it and stuff necessarily. I could pursue that though. He's a very good Christian young man. I'll leave it at that for the moment. And then evolution is scrutinization project, which yeah, there's a few different ways we could go about that, but that's not necessarily like CJ and Nicholas right there, And then so here's my ministry. So Greek Access Bible. Some of these are mostly from the list, right? Greek Access Bible, Biblical Timeline, Agreement of the Church, and Counter Marxism. And then I also want to do these Bible readings and studies. Preachings. I've actually written a whole list of like sermons. I'm going to try to do the a sermon a day for a couple months. It sounds kind of crazy, but then I'll have like sermoned a bunch of topics, then they holistically fit together and stuff, and then I can like learn from that and go from there and towards a future of being better at it or something. So I'm just gonna go for it. There's so many things I want to address, and it's like if I do a sermon a day and there's some people watching it, and then it's like that's doing more to address it immediately than I am right now. And then we'll see if I can keep that up while working on other things, or if I discover that. But it should be very much like doing it live. And then if I miss a day for some reason, I can make it up by doing 2 in a day. But we'll see how that goes. And then Truly Christian Political Option Project. So that was another one that's on the list. I kind of listed them in order of my priority of them, which puts the Truly Christian Political Option Project last on my personal list of priorities. But at the same time, it's the right thing to do. I don't think it's going to like I don't know. Well, I don't know how much it could change, like what goes on with the Republican Party and stuff. I don't know. The Book of Revelation is going to happen. I mean, it still behooves us to do the right thing. So then I summarized CJ's Ministries because I was writing this to CJ, and I was like, okay, so you got unapologetics and watchdog. I hope that's a fair way of characterizing it. And then I put agreement of the church ? Because I would like you to be involved in that. So we'll be discussing tomorrow stuff that might help us see if that's something we can work on together or not. Hopefully it is. I mean, it would be hard to do any agreement of the church project if even CJ and I can't agree enough for it. But we'll see. And then counter Marxism project, and then the truly Christian political option. So the counter Marxism thing, like I said, I can't change this year because it's in the email that's already sent. But it also is the true justice in contrast to social justice, so that we're not just telling them like, well, that's nonsense, but then like all these lingering effects from evil elitists, we're just not going to address them. No, let's address them, but with a true justice approach, not the social justice approach, I think CJ and I are vaguely on the same page with that, and in a good way. I mean, I say vaguely just for accuracy, but yeah. So what do you think about the counter Marxism and true justice as we wrap up me presenting this list? So you guys see how like I've sort of organized things into like these address needs in the church, and wow, this is big stuff. It's kind of like at least it's a short list, and my brain's not scattered all over the place. So I think I was telling CJ in private, or maybe it was at the start of the stream, how like I was frantically responding to suddenly being so alert to all this stuff. But then it's like, gotta, it was a good way to quickly get everything on the table so I could sort it out. And now I'm getting pretty close to sorting it out, I think. And then once I start doing stuff, I might have to whittle it down because it's biting off more than I can chew. But we'll cross that bridge when I come to it. So I'm already, I guess, trying to whittle it down. It's not easy for me to do. I'm passionate about stuff. So then I know I asked you a question, interrupted you, CJ. But yeah, so the counter Marxism and true justice point, though, if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, just a lot of the counter Marxism and Christian political option stuff people will be able to see in the sort of newsy podcasty forum that they like to find from Tucker and Matt Walsh and all that kind of stuff on Watchdogs, which will be kind of nice for everybody, right? Because it'll keep it kind of like streamlined and palatable, and also done in such a way that I think it could still not just be an echo chamber, right, but also potentially reach people who are kind of on the outside, so to speak. So I think that's definitely a good thing.
I think by nature it's not an echo chamber because it's like the fundamentalist voice that really needs to come into this,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're not echoing because you're the one fundamentalist voice coming into it, kind of a thing. It's not like you got a gang around you with it. And then me, like after the mistake I made with Smokey and the fact that like you appreciate criticism and stuff, you're not like sensitive and feminine. But so it's just like it's really easy to like offer you unsolicited advice. I've done that a lot, so I've decided to do that less going forward. So I take it that's kind of why you set up the thing tomorrow, because I was like, I don't want to keep coming at you and you got your own priorities to do, so I'll put the ball in your court more, But
yeah, partially, and then also part of it was just noticing that there was just a growing number of things that I felt needed to be addressed. So I figured we might as well, go live with it and get everybody involved and see what people want to say, because that kind of stuff is, I think, edifying for people when two people who are genuine about everything are actually hashing it out rather than just having a slugfest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally agree. And then also, I don't think it's going to keep adding up to like more and more things endlessly, you know? But like I said, I went through a specific frantic period of putting a bunch of stuff on the table and sorting it out. And you were right there with me. And I'm like hoping that we're sort of in stride together into all this bad spiritual battle in the public space, you know? They call it influencers and stuff, and I guess like that's not an inaccurate term, you know. We want to be good influencers for Christ. Let Christ be the influencer through us. Let us submit to him like that, you know. So yeah, I'm hopeful to that we can go through that stuff together and stuff. But so with that, I don't remember what point I was jiving at there. I got to take a break. Remember, I told you I'd have to take some breaks.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you might talk to the audience about, but I'll try to keep it short.
Well, I guess I don't have much to talk to the audience on at the moment. I know I've been having some, having some slack get stuff over on my channel and stuff like that, but fortunately I've been working a lot. Just kind of the reason for that. But I will say, very pleased with some of the stuff I heard recently about people making decisions to finally, I think, have some biblical standards. A lot of people having some biblical standards that weren't previously, so that's nice. I don't necessarily trust everybody who is jumping on the bandwagon, but some of the names were still nice to hear, so that's certainly good. And you know, definitely wanted to voice my pleasure at that, so to speak. Excuse me, man. Working like a whole bunch now. It sucks because labor shortages and stuff. You know what I mean? Everybody's like, man, oh man, oh man. I'm way too tired to be 23. You know what I mean? Or maybe I'm way too 23 to be tired, whatever it is. But
yeah, I think it's the doing both, like what all the other adults do, and being ambitious to sort of switch to your ministry, you know. So yeah, anyone who appreciates what CJ does, I really recommend financing him, you know. I mean, I've said that the project I'm working on, I plan to do a proof of concept and go wider base with asking for support for the project in particular, you know. But what CJ is doing, he keeps putting in all the work and stuff. So yeah, I suggest that.
I do appreciate that, and you know, it is kind of funny because I don't know, I've made comments a lot that I've always thought of myself as like a lazy person, and I guess that's not the way that other people see me, and I like that. I enjoy that. It's nice to be more critical of yourself than other people are.
Yeah, I mean, you know, awareness of that problem at a young age, being saved at a young age and stuff is probably, you know, relative to me, is probably really helpful for you. So you were perhaps headed like the same sort of way I was, but sort of probably more consistently street, so probably kind of more awful in some ways, you know. But I don't, so I don't know, but I think yeah, so maybe that laziness thing is something you're more coming out of. I struggle with that a lot more because, you know, I'm an old dog who's struggling with the new trick. But also because I actually spend a lot of time trying to get this stuff right. Like, you know, I'm not going to seminary But that doesn't mean that I can just skip do education and then still go out and do public ministry. You know what I mean? So I tested different teachers to the Bible and was a good Berean, and I found people who are worth learning under. And we live in this information age, and people call the seminaries cemeteries sometimes because there's so many problems with so many of them. There's one, the Masters University, which I would trust because it's the John MacArthur one. So generally I would trust it. I don't agree with him on everything or whatever, but that's not really the point of a seminary, that you have to agree on everything. But it shouldn't be like woke or secular nonsense. So anyway, so I'm not doing seminary, but I got to prepare and do things right. And the reason I made a lot less content for a long time, first, I had a employment for income, but then why am I on this kick about like teachers needing to have certain standards, and we have too many of them who don't and stuff, and I'm like ranting and raving about it all the time, because that's where my head is, because I'm not planning to be that teacher who's not having that standard. So my head in preparing to I see a need, and I think I'm called to fulfill it. And I think I see that I can fulfill it. And I don't mean the entirety of the need, but my part of it, But I got to be responsible with that. So that's where my head is. And that's why I've been on that a lot. And it kind of fits with the community and stuff here too. But a lot of it's like, we just need to submit to scripture. It is perspicuous, meaning understandable easily enough. So we need to submit to scripture, and we need to spiritually be in that place of trusting Messiah so that it flows out in reality and stuff. And this harping isn't like harping for people who are not doing ministry. It's like leadership has got to be up to standard. Everyone's depending on that because we're following the leadership. We don't want our church leaders to be Joe Biden's. You see what I'm saying? The church is having debacles like the Afghanistan debacle. It's like, yeah. So anyway, so sort of enough said on that. But I think that stuff I've been ranting and raving about a lot, and I think it was worth sort of letting people know where that is coming from, and where my head is at. And if anyone wants to write me personal emails about that stuff for some reason or something, I'm not trying to be unapproachable or a rogue or whatever. The one thing I don't want is to be discouraged to the same standards as the Bible, and to be encouraged to slacken my standards. It's like I can be more slack on my success, right? I can make my mistakes, I can do my sins, and I confess them. And when I confess them, I say the strict standard of the Bible is true. So my point's not to harp on people for their mistakes. My point is when you say the strict standard of the Bible is not true and you call God a liar, that offends me. And that's not for people in these sorts of what me and CJ do, that's just not for us. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, actually, so I was looking at the live chat, and this is going to be full circle, but Jamie asked why I had recently asked him if he had an aversion to being on camera, because I asked him if he had a problem with that, right? Because he has his face on his picture, but he doesn't usually do camera. I just figured I'd ask the question. And the reason I had asked, because I have been thinking about maybe having a cameras on rule when I do my open rooms. And I'm calculating basically who I would have to kind of bite the bullet on not having on anymore, and who, who's worth it.
Did you mean cameras on at least sometimes so your identity is not secret, or do you mean if it's every time, then that's sort of a professionalism standard, in the sense that people probably don't want to come in looking all shabby and stuff, and then people might not casually participate as often or something, you know. So that's just a factor to consider.
Yeah, and it's not been something that I decided quite yet, but the reason I wanted to is just because, you know, there is a trend of, you know, it's not everybody whose camera's off, but a lot of people who are cameras off just feel like they can act any way that they want. I think that has a large part to do with it because, sure, you're not literally face to face, but there is sort of like almost the illusion of being face to face when your camera's on.
May I say something? Because it's like it might seem like I talk about myself a lot or whatever, but like, you know, that's what I'm doing here. I'm hashing out things I need to hash out, you know. So but hopefully it's church kind of stuff. Like that's why if I'm so focused on my thinking about church kind of stuff, then I can do it in the open and maybe it's useful for people, you know. Because CJ and I could have this meeting in private, but yeah, I hope so. Let's try to keep it lively for the audience or on task. So as I saying is just like I came out with my last name on my screen name thing, right? Because I'm like, you know, it's not like Mike Winger hides his last name. I mean, I'm pretty sure any of us, if we wanted to, we could probably find out where Mike Winger lives. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, I was just like, it's not appropriate to be like hiding. And it's like, I know I have some, especially when I first came in, like, you know, I was coming from a bit of an off-base spiritual place. I had a lot of correction that I needed and stuff. And to like go through all that in the open, you know. But like if I was gonna jump into being a public face, I gotta let people be able to test me and stuff, you know. There can't be any sort of secrecy and stuff. Because that kind of stuff, you know, matters to me a lot. That like I'm testing the people I'm listening to and stuff, you know. So I guess I've put myself out there sort of as like a case study of someone progressing over time. So we'll see what that's like over time, right? I mean, so far it's been something.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, and you know, it's regardless of whether or not I decide to do it, I might not, honestly, just because there are a couple people like Jamie and Fifth Trumpet also who I enjoy talking to who don't like their cameras on a lot of times. But you know, it's the idea is still there of just like there's got to be more, not only honesty but accountability. You know what I mean? In this whole whatever you want to call it. I kind of hate calling it the community because I don't feel as if I'm a part of it. Not to say that necessarily applies to everybody who's watching this, right?
Well,
here for sure.
If I may say, the word community works in the sense of communication. If you sort of specify it that way, because I'm not sure there's any sort of better word for it, because it is like these people communicate with each other and it becomes a network, you know. It's not communication. It's like just talking ideas, exchanging ideas, communication, you know. That is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, and it is one of those things too, where it's like, you know, a lot of the people who even, you know, not even all the people who I really enjoy talking to are believers. You know what I mean? Like I really, as an example, really enjoy talking to Danny. Danny's not a believer, and so you know, I don't even necessarily mean it in the sense that it's like we disagree, therefore we're not in community. It's more just like I don't know. I feel like a lot of people started like thinking that we were all like a unit. You know what I mean? And I don't think that that's accurate. I think that
that's not really what a community is either.
Well, and it might be true. I'm just saying that I feel like that's how people have been interpreting it.
As a community is like multiple households with multiple families. It's like, you know, I'm a community with my neighbors, but when I have a family reunion, I mean, then you might use community in a more intimate sense, you know, depending on how you're using the word. For like the neighbors who might actually visit the family reunion. And there's a couple of them, and then they would probably only stop by for a few minutes. But like, you know, because they knew the kids when they were kids and stuff when we were actually kids. Right. You know, now like some of my siblings are grandparents now.
Yeah, absolutely. But and there's another thing here too. Actually, I want to go ahead and briefly address real quick. Jamie brought up the these comments that I had made about a week ago, where I basically completely lost my temper and cursed up a storm on the comment section of Praise's live chat, which wasn't a good thing, obviously.
Oh no, that's not good at all, because Praise and the people around there, they definitely need a good example from I think especially, a few of us, including you.
Yeah, and basically the long and short of it is, I did definitely make the comment, and there was no I know Rage contemplated whether or not I may have been sober, which I admire the sentiment. I know that Rage is not saying that I'm a drunk; he's saying that he feels like that's not me. So I do appreciate that at least, but it is. I mean, it was just I lost my cool. Is really all it was, and I repent of it.
Oh, well, apparently everyone lost their tempers over whatever this was, as Cheryl says.
Yeah,
So,
sure. And
but at the same time, I do think CJ wants to aspire to the gentleness that teachers are called to, and also the above reproachness of I don't know if you're thinking to ever be a pastor or not, but it seems like there's a need for good pastors. And not only that, but I think there's a need for good apologists to also be good pastors. If you're gonna buy vocation, that might be kind of the way to go, because sometimes I think apologists are a little too connected to philosophy and things like that, and too disconnected from the church. And barring our exact disagreements about that, I definitely think that's going on a lot to some extent.
Yeah, and one thing I will say too is that I part of the problem with the flip out was it was unfortunately, partially a combination of things that I do believe, right? I do believe that people, specifically the people who are propping up Smokey, I think that that's a problem. And I do believe that Smokey is the person in the pictures. And I also, I know this isn't very PC to say these days, but I do believe in very, very harsh punishments for pedophiles, including but not limited to the death penalty. And so,
Yeah, well, the one thing I want to say about that is that I don't know if the youngest possible age for the crime in question is 12 or 13, but I think it's one of those two. So I don't want it to be exaggerated. At the same time as I want to be very truthful about it. Well, that's part of being very truthful about it. So there you go. But there is the other charge that's more vague, but it's possible that it's literally just two charges for the same thing. Like when I was charged for a crime, it was two charges for one thing. So, but go ahead, go on.
Well, that's kind of, to an extent, that's part of my point, is that it's, even though I do believe that everything that I just said very strongly, that I do believe that people who commit sexual assault against minors should absolutely be executed, frankly. I mean, I'm not shy about that. I made a major mistake in my rage, and that was basically attributing directly saying Smokey should be, because at that point I've now made the claim that he's guilty in a court of law, and that's not okay for a Christian to do if he has not been found guilty in a court of law. So that was a mistake on my part as well. And I just wanted to get that clear right now, because all the people who are currently in the live chat are brothers and sisters who I respect, and you guys deserve an explanation for why my behavior was like that. So yeah, and, there you have it.
Nice. And I will say for my part on that I think there is a difference between a child and a teenager as far as how severe it is. So I definitely think, I mean,
well, and to be fair, that makes a difference too. Like I still think
in terms of a death penalty, I don't think
Yeah.
like the drawing the line at a specific age for death penalty when people it used to be common to be married at different ages and stuff. So I don't know. I don't know exactly how all that parses out, but it's all serious. But there's definitely a different level of severity because in our law and God's law, like you have to marry a woman you're with, or else you can't be with a woman. And I mean, we can get into the technical details of how that is done or whatever, but that's straight up it, Like you can't do that outside of marriage. And it's like I get how normal it is in the world, but that is not our normal, and that was my normal. So I get that, like it's but you just have to go without until you're married. That's part of our life.
Well, and one thing, and this will be the last thing I'll say on it too. One thing briefly I do also have to bring up that's part of this whole thing is not only was it wrong of me to specifically attribute it to Smokey as if he had been found guilty in a court of law, which regardless of what I believe has not happened yet. But on top of that, it is also, if I say that Ted Bundy should be executed because I'm mad that Ted Bundy stole my sandwich, but it just so happens that Ted Bundy did all the stuff that he did, that's still evil and not Christian, right? Now, if I say Ted Bundy should be executed because of all the evil he did, as far as murdering women and stuff like that, that's a different thing, right? And so I hope I'm making sense in that, where I say, right, the comment that I made, regardless of if there was truth in it, was said in rage. So that is also one reason that I want to repent of it. And that'll be the last thing I say on it.
And I don't know if I contributed to any pressure in that, because I know I've been addressing that with you behind the scenes, because I think it goes a step or two further than you think it goes, as far as what boundaries we need to draw and why. So that's something we'll be talking about tomorrow, in that meeting tomorrow, if we have time enough to get through all 4 topics.
Yeah, and by the way, Cheryl and Janet and Jamie, because every single one of you could have at that moment of time been like, oh, I guess CJ isn't what I thought he was, and then left, and you guys didn't, and you guys decided to be understanding with me and all that. So I want you guys to all know that I appreciate you tremendously.
Yeah, and because you do the real Christian walk, and it's only an exception, something like this, then it's especially easy for us to not really be too concerned. And I'm sure you had worse problems in the past, and it's all progressive direction you're going in toward Christ, which is very good.
Yeah, I did. Well, let me say, I won't go into the whole thing because obviously it's a story for another time, but some people have seen my video on DMX, and so they know a little bit of my backstory, but I was a rough kid, man. Oh my goodness. It's I mean, I laugh about it, but it's kind of not funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of knew how to like flirt with that stuff and sort of play it safer or whatever. So then it just went in like slow motion, and like it still happened, So
Mm-hmm.
it was better that you got to go through it quickly anyway.
Yeah, I feel. Praise God, though, right? Praise God.
Yeah, then praise God, for saving me.
Amen.
And then, because even our whole lifetime here is fleeting and momentary compared to the eternity to come. So let me browse some of this stuff I have here. So, yeah, and well, there's a lot of like assets and things I could screen share with you and stuff. It's just that I haven't had my mind on that at all today. So it feels daunting to my mind, but if I started just sharing stuff, it probably would go pretty easily and just be fun. Because I'm going to go through these sermon topics when I do the first sermon, which is going to be forgiveness of sin, which topics get readdressed and are interwoven through each other and stuff. So before I did the sinfulness of sin, which will be the second sermon, don't worry, I'm not going to go through a bunch of these. I'm just talking about these two. So the forgiveness, before I go to the sinfulness of sin, I wanted hearing about the sinfulness of sin to increase appreciation for the forgiveness of sin. And then it goes into more stuff: freeness of grace, magnitude of Christ's sacrifice, trustworthiness of his sacrifice. And I'm skipping some, but there's all kinds of stuff in here. Topic after topic after topic after. Anyway, so, but I was like, forgiveness of sin, I don't know where I'd start with that. It seems like I would kind of elaborate on it more after other things. Like I have to do some kind of summary for it to even make sense. And then I'm like, well, then it would be like short if it's just that specific point, really, because like a lot of it's the other stuff that the other sermon titles are about. And then I'm like, okay, well, that'll make it a good starting point. So I guess that's fitting. This will work well. Because if it'll be short and I'll need to go through the other stuff, I can read the whole list and stuff and do like an intro to the whole series. So anyway, so that's another thing I'm doing. Let me see what else I have up here. Yeah, the agreement of the church is something I'm really passionate about. That the Bible is clear, and like now that we're in this information age and this mass communication age and stuff, we're equipped to iron out all these wrinkles and stuff, you know? But people, I think they're kind of more attached to where they're coming from sometimes than they are to where they're going. And it's like, because where we're going is, you know, the Bible, like, I think a lot of times God's really just teaching stuff from the Bible. Like, do you ever read a book and like the author intends something and you hear what the author intends as you read the book, right? And it's like a straightforward kind of a thing. I think sometimes we debate about these Bible doctrines, but really there is just a straightforward reading where we're just reading it as the author intends, and it's kind of that simple. And then we should like get in agreement with all that stuff, you know? If we can't even get in agreement with that stuff, we're going to make room for people to just like have wild theories about the intention of the author when clearly anyone who reads the book, you can, you know? And here's kind of the key thing to that, though, is that Jesus thanked the Father, right, for hiding the truth from the prudent and the wise, but revealing it unto babes. And I realized today what that's for. It's these same warnings about enlightenment without faith, right? Like in Hebrews, these people who are falling away, and they also have all these traits of being enlightened, but there's no mention that they have faith. And that's the thing. God doesn't want us to learn intellectually that God is real and Jesus is God and we should trust him, because that's not the transformative process that makes the new creation. So, I mean, I'm not saying he does not want us to learn intellectually, but that's not the point. The point is the spiritual awareness of this beautiful spiritual truth of God that is transformative. And that's got to be the way that we come to faith. That's why he hides these things from the wise and prudent and reveals them unto babes. Who are the babes? The newborns, the new creations. They actually like hear the shepherd's voice. They hear the teacher, the way he talks, you know? And so like I concern a lot for people who like, you know, it took me some time to get into that, where I'm just like, oh, there's a lot of like, I can just straightforwardly read the scripture. I don't have to like keep questioning who's right in the debate or something. It's actually kind of easier than I thought, you know? And it took me some years to get there. But it's worth getting here, and hopefully I can help other people get there, and hopefully the church can normalize it, right? I mean, think about all the terrible things that have been normalized in the culture. Let's normalize, you know, like straightforward reading of the Bible and being corrected by it quickly and progressing quickly so that we're prepared unto every good work to do awesome kingdom stuff. Like, let's normalize all that stuff in the agreement in Christ, you know, conformity to the mind of Christ, our mind being like his, you know? So, Yeah, let's normalize all that good Jesus stuff. So let me see what else I have here. Well, unless you want to say something.
Just amen. Oh, you know what? I forgot to do a thing on the 21st. Doggone it.
I don't know. That was days ago. What was that?
August 21st was Ruby Ridge. It's like the whole Waco, Texas thing, except the people who were being attacked weren't a crazy cult, but just a family. Oh man, that's sorry. I just looked at the because the live chat is hovering right above where the timestamp is, and it said August 26th, and it came into my head at that moment. That's such a random thing to think about at the moment, but
It comes up.
yeah, I should have done a show on that on the Watchdog when that happened, but it's fine. It's whatever. It's
What
cool.
what time will I do in teachings? Huh? I guess I would prefer to call them preachings. The sermons I'm going to do because they're going to be very. I think they'll be very biblical, and I guess they're teachings too. But I don't know what time, because if I'm going to do them every day, they're not going to be at the same time every day, I don't think. If I get into a reliable routine, then I can set a daily time. But I don't have a reliable routine right now, and I don't want to set a time and not do it at that time. But the point is for me to keep doing them all, despite that I know I'm not really ready now to deliver everything perfectly and stuff the way that would be ideal. But it's like, so it's a bit more organic and less professional. So it's here on, I call this my personal channel now. I don't purposely promote it or anything. So I'm like, most of the people who've seen this channel in some sense or another, like I've gotten to know them, whether they're like the atheists or Christians, a little bit or whatever. So I'm like, this is like the people I know online. And so I'm not doing the sermon series, this one. I'm just like, it's like my first try or whatever. So I'm not going to put it on another channel and purposely market it and stuff. Or I might put tags in it if I think I'm doing well. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's a big responsibility, but I think I have good stuff to offer already. But I have a lot to learn too. So I don't know. I gotta weigh all that carefully. So sorry for that tangent there, but at the same time, I'm like, this is sort of an example of like, why I'm always criticizing teaching standards and stuff, because this is where my head's at. I'm like, it is a careful decision, because if I read the list of things I want to talk about, they're all like so awesome, but some of them are controversial, right? Like consenting that the law is good. Well, that's a quote from Romans 7, and I mean it in context. But then, I have disagreement about the proper place of Torah in the Christian's mind, right? Because obviously it has no place in salvation in the new covenant. We all agree on that, which is why people don't give me a hard time. But so there's a few that are quote controversial, but then most of them are just like really awesome stuff that is just biblical and straightforward. So there's no reason for me to really mess it up or anything. So I'm pretty excited about that stuff, and maybe I'll put in the time and put the tags and stuff. We'll see what it is. I might have to do it every other day. So I prepare one day and then do it the next day, and that way I can do the other things that I do. So it might not be every day. That might be too crazy. But I don't want to keep talking about myself. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else on these topics. But I don't really think so, because we're going to discuss stuff we disagree on tomorrow. And I already sort of outlined how my head's gotten straight on things. And, I do want to come back to effectively like warning people about important stuff that's going on. If the church isn't going to account for the financial scandals, and if the people in the pews are not going to begin to be good stewards and stop tolerating their money being stolen, because it's not their money, it's Jesus's money. So when they let their money be stolen, they're letting Jesus's money be stolen. And that's all the more true when the stewardship is specifically what you're donating as your money to the church, right? It better be going somewhere churchly. And honestly, like right now, in a lot of cases around Big Eva and stuff, it's not, So that whole financial scandal thing is a whole different topic on the small scale or the big systematic scale. I guess it exists on the small scale in different ways, but yeah, so the church really needs to handle that financial scandal thing. So I will mention that one more time right now. And yes, I don't know exactly. I mentioned AD replied to one of my comments, and I'm like, okay, I think I have his ear for a moment. So I left like a longer comment, and I think it was good enough. He probably read the whole thing, but then he didn't reply because he doesn't have time for yet another one. You know what I mean? To read another one. So if he doesn't have time to read another comment from me, then he doesn't want to like egg me on to do one, probably. So he just didn't respond. That's my best guess. But I mentioned to AD that the woke church thing is going really well in that there's people who don't want to be corrected and there's people who are glad that they're hearing about it, And that's just beginning because AD, his pastor, had him do it like at his church. And they were all like thanking him and stuff because, they didn't really know about it so much. And so here on the internet, among people who pay attention to such things, it's kind of been sorted out. And there's people who refuse to be corrected, and there's people who have been corrected. And then we got to get that out, through all the pews and the masses and the general zeitgeist, I guess they say, right? But that's going well. But the whole thing with the financial scandals is extremely important and is not like being addressed sufficiently at all yet. So I mentioned that to AD as sort of the conclusion of everything that I was saying is like maybe, not tolerating financial scandal needs to be handled as well as woke church has been handled, Sort of trying to hint to him that I like him to take that on to some extent. So, okay, I'll open something and then I'll screen share it. So, let me see. Okay, I'll start out with screen sharing this one, I guess. So here's Jamie's work combined with me doing stuff with it. Because Jamie did the dog face. So the window, oh, there it is. Didn't show the little picture that I was expecting. So I guess you all see it. Oh, it's still loading. I forgot it takes forever to load because it's so many separate 3D objects. But it'll load eventually. So we'll just chill. But okay, so this is going to be like the Rorschach dog faces. Which is kind of interesting because I guess it's one of the things CJ and I will talk about tomorrow. And I mean, I definitely hear your perspective on that too, CJ. So you have me in like a mixed spot. But I gave you my idea of how I thought it would work. Did you get a chance to read that one?
Yeah, I did. I read through. I think so far I've actually read through everything, if I'm not mistaken.
But did you get to check out his channel? And he's like he's doing the libertarian false gospel, like to comic book fans kind of a thing. But he doesn't really like be all preachy about libertarianism per se. I mean, that is always his perspective and stuff, but a lot of times it's just anti-woke-ish or whatever, So I think you see what's going on here some already, right? So
Yeah.
These were kind of like the sorts of ones I did at first that I made my own and painted it up. And in a sense, it's not like terrible. It is kind of similar to a real dog's head, but it is kind of terrible. So, and I would have had to work out the splotches better. But then I decided instead of working on my own model for longer, I experimented enough with that. So I would go find other people's models. So you see how like I stamp it onto these 3D models. So I'm starting with like the ones that are less the look. I'm zooming in on. So this one, I would have to redo the teeth and stuff some maybe or something, or maybe not. It's growly and it, you know, but the problem with this one is that there's in my software here, I have no way to cut off this thick part. And so it's not like I can connect it with a body and hide it. It sticks out of the body, I mean, unless you want your guy to be like rotund, very rotund. And then, so here's what this one looks like bare. Oh, I added that so the tongue would be like, more subtle. So then when I put the stuff on it, I won't have that sticking out tongue look real bad. So then I guess I would need to flatten it in the front there, which is easy enough to do by putting a shape there to do that. Yeah, so here's when I did spray paint it, and I still did the sort of shape and stuff. It looks like it's not really detailed nicely yet. Stuff takes time, and I didn't know how interested you are in it, so I was poking around for fun until I find out more or whatever. But yeah, this paint job needs a little bit of fixing, but you can see far away how like it does the look really good of a sheepdog with a Rorschach face, right? So but the problem is that close up, it's not really perfect in the middle zone there. So for a small budget, could probably find one, but I was looking through what I could find for free. And then, okay, so it does go to something a bit more of interest here. It won't let me scroll further, at least not yet. Okay, so I'm trying to see. Okay, this one I've already colored. So first, let me see if I can zoom in some, and then you can see what it looked like before I colored it. It's not letting me zoom. I don't know why. That takes too long to load, but you can see this blue model holding a shield with a dog nose on it. You can see him here. So here's after I painted him brown. This one here. And then I don't remember where I was at on shield stuff, right? Well, there's like city wall and shield type options, but there's not really other options. We could go through city wall options sometime if you want like that cityscape spotlight thing updated. I don't remember what the last thing I did on that was because I started working on the globe one, So, I never got the more fitting head shape in here yet. And his hat is invisible right now, but you can see it when I highlight it. But I don't know why it's invisible. I think I'm just overloading the software kind of a thing. But yeah, making the 3D model is actually pretty easy. And then I can tilt the dog's head, and I can put a different dog's head on here, And let me get this one out of the way. And then when I got the 3D model of that guy in the background, it was not in the pose. And the software doesn't let me do the pose. So that was a problem. And then, so I had to just put the picture behind it because the picture did have the pose. And then eventually I got this far. And he also has a hat on, even though it's invisible and you can't see it. Right. And it kind of sells a lot better with the hat. But it'll also sell better with a sheepdoggy or dog. And so you read my my little spoken word version or written word version of a storyboard for an idea for an intro.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're thinking of something more serious or if just for the intro, starting in with a bit of fun is something, or if that's something to discuss with branding. But basically, I just want to know what your vague opinion is on it so far.
Well, so I have a idea for the daily intro kind of already, but I'm also setting up. I want special intros and things that I want to use for advertising too. And so there's a lot of work for me to like work in other ideas that are out, because I have other ideas too that didn't quite make the what would be the daily intro cut. You know what I mean? So, but what I want to
Yeah.
do.
Well, I'm really good at taking like all the ideas on the table and what someone's dealing with and going for like for this sort of stuff, and sort of like sorting it out, not to my purposes, but to their purpose, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
Like when I did a music act, um, I would like go for the sort of character of the song, at least what I perceive to be the character of the song, and not really like a lot of musicians are like, this is the sort of music I play, and I want to play that, and it's like that wasn't the approach I took at all, and it was like, so yeah, I might be able to like help you with that if you like input a bunch of stuff into me, then like after some days, I might have some, I might regurgitate it out with something that you like or whatever, as far as concepts or something, sort of taking it all into account, kind of a thing. But yes, I don't know if you want to um, see what I can bring to the table on that, because you're really busy. Like if you had time to like dote over the concepts,
Mhm.
And for me, it's like it doesn't even take me as much time because I've done like years and years of like theorizing projects and outlining them and stuff. So when it comes to like the actual project doing, I have yet to like really prove myself on that. But when it comes to planning it and stuff, you know, but and as well as right now is an opportune moment to comment on it, I will. And that's the Greek Access Bible project that I'm doing. Is like yeah, it's the culmination of that kind of thinking that I have to plan out what all the protocols will be, and um, through and through for a giant project and stuff, and I have to get all the plan out beforehand and then go through the project and everything. So I've even set it up so the workflow can feel like I'm just enjoying a video game while I'm updating the project, because I enjoy all the subject matter. So it's pretty easy to get a routine like that. But anyway, that didn't really like come out as um, clear as I'm trying to express something. But that's neither here nor there. The point is if you want to just have a session where you just dump all the different ideas on me, and then I talk about it with you later after, maybe I've come up with cool stuff contemplating it or something, then I offer that. And then let me see if there's anything else I wanted to share with you. Oh yeah, I talked about the other stuff. So there is one more Earth display. I don't know if I've shown to you yet.
I don't believe I've seen another one.
What'd you say?
I was saying I don't believe I've seen another one.
Yeah, they're here. It must be a picture file. That makes sense. They become picture files by the time they're an end result, and well, even before that, a lot of times they become. I use 3D stuff for some things. I get it to a 2D place, and then I start layering and combining or whatever. It's all very circumstantial. 3D objects is not the right place. That's why I'm lost. Pictures, image library, ACP work. Whatever ACP stands for, I inherited that acronym from CJ. Stuff came with it. So this overlay side, okay. So I don't know if you've used any of the new city stuff yet. I guess you haven't. I thought I sent you one that I said was like, I don't know, maybe we've just really been wanting to talk about it to go further. Because the old overlay, I'm going to open it for the rest of the audience. I don't think they've seen this yet. So this is like a sneak peek. I don't know what the difference between these different numbers are. But 3 is the newest, I guess. And this lighting scheme is actually kind of nonsensical, as is the angle of this window here, because it's like a proof of concept. I didn't take the time to make everything look correct. So actually the angle of the word watchdog would be along with the bricks, because I would stamp it onto the wall so it'll look like it's painted on the wall back there. Same with this logo here, will look like it's painted on. The lighting will make a lot more sense.
Right.
So, but that was more for the audience, because you and I have already seen that. Unless, I don't know, how did you? I mean, do you want that one so that I should move forward with it to like more polished?
Yes,
Will
definitely.
you use it for some time? Okay, I think that's the main thing I needed to know. And then I was gonna let you like choose from options or something, but I'm like, you're busy. I think that's my job as the artist, you know. Um, if there was options I thought I needed you to choose from, like if there was more than one dog head that might work, for instance. I mean, you know, I could ask you which dog head you prefer. I'm just pretty sure you prefer the one that looks the most like the sort of sheepdog you're thinking of. So I think I was on the right track.
Yeah, definitely. The exact breed that that Jamie made for this one is a Great Pyrenees.
Yeah, and I prefer the Maremma for livestock guardian dogs, and they're like legendary for it. I know Pyrenees, I guess, are also, and they're more, the name of a Pyrenees is more well known.
Mm-hmm.
So
Those two
here's,
dogs look super similar though, which is interesting.
yeah, I don't know how similar they are as far as where they came from or anything, but yeah, they look really similar. But Maremma, I can tell one by looking at it, and they have some really honorable behavioral qualities that, for like the Christian concept of a sheepdog, is just so perfect, you know, a livestock guardian dog protecting from the wolves. So, and these are where I took the planet Earth, and this city background and the billboard both came with the 3D software that just comes with Windows 10, the Paint 3D, and they look good enough, and it's like I can use them. That's what they're for. They're not like you know, there's not going to be an issue there. And same with this planet Earth that looks really good. So a lot of the stuff that like works well for CJ was like in here, you know. So
Cool.
and I used the same lighting here as like just a quick prototype. But then over here, I think you have seen some of this stuff, right? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, definitely some of it, but I don't think all of it. I think you showed me one of
Well, a lot of it's work in progress pieces. You
Mhm.
know, the pieces that get put together and swapped around and stuff, because you got to do all the layering. So here's what this looks like. You see the gray through the background because it's transparent. But and this one I think is the actual curvature of the planet, the 3D planet that's in the background that I stamped a rectangle on, I think. And then if that's the case, there's another one that I wanted it to be a little bit more straight for displaying what you have on the internet. I wanted to offer you that option, but it doesn't have as much of a curve to it, so it doesn't actually show the curve of the planet. And I think the intuitive instinct of the viewer, it kind of sells the curve of the planet less because it's not the same curve, right? So then it leaves you with this option you would have to make, whether you want it to sell the curve of the planet better or display your stuff on the internet better. But the problem is that I'm not able to identify with my naked eye what I'm looking for. So, it's probably, oh, okay, the DDD end result game over. If I actually look at what I'm looking at a little bit, maybe there's some final result section. Global overlay, sample global overlay, sample. Those look like they're at the same angle though, right? So yeah. See, people must be so annoyed at the moment. But interesting how Okay, instead of opening it in Paint 3D, which takes forever to load things, actually it probably wouldn't for those, but I can use the image viewer and I can actually like do this in a way that's much more enjoyable for the audience, and I can actually accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish. That's a very vague way to say it, but you're all about to be there in a moment. You won't just have to listen to my vague saying. Okay, cool. So now I can screen share this window, and then and we'll be done after this siege. So okay, so I think that's probably still the full angularness, yeah. So if it just suddenly shows me one that has less of a curve to it, then I'll know what I'm looking at. And it's not the one that's perfectly straight. That's an earlier proof of concept. Maybe I didn't get it quite to the point of the end result. I just got to the point of testing the curve, maybe. But even so, I should be able to find that. Oh, it might be these ones that are gray on gray and I can't see anything. Yeah, I don't know what's going on in those ones because the transparency and okay, well, hopefully right around here there should be one that's more angle, less angle. Oh, I think that was the change, right? Oh, no, these are all sorts of different changes. So I guess at this point... Oh, and then this must have been the one that was... Yeah, well, maybe it's a subtle enough difference. I don't know. Oh, maybe this is the one. This is like no curve on the bottom, though. But I guess that's the idea, yeah. So if it were to be like that, then you see how it doesn't really sell the curve the same?
Yeah.
But it fits the internet better. So that's your dilemma. And that's one of those choices that's above the artist's pay grade,
Right.
in my opinion. You know, unless you had a producer who, you know, but
Right.
I'm not straight up your producer. I'm like your co-producer. You're your own executive producer. You got to make the executive decisions. I'm like that. I'm not saying I am that.
No, I definitely get what you mean.
So, yeah, if you want me to, well, how do you like how those Earth ones look, though? You know, the ones that looked like complete, like probably the one I showed you when I first started showing them to you or whatever.
Yeah, I think they look actually really cool. I think what I'm going to probably do is I'll use because I am talking a lot about not local, like I don't talk about like the local crime beat, but and like not just my state politics, but like areas around me, like South Dakota, Wyoming, all that. So like, and I think I might use
it's kind of like the vigilante struggle stuff.
Exactly.
And then the other vigilante being used poetically, of course. And then the other side, vigilance, right? And like the whole symbolism kind of thing. But then the other one will be for global. And then I can actually like arrange it so that I could put the spot on the map if you were to give me a list, you know, like at least 24 hours in advance. And then worst case, you'll already have one that you can use for anything global.
Right.
So worst case scenario is I don't provide it. But I mean, I can just like rotate the Earth and pop like a flag on that spot of that country or whatever, you know?
Mm.
And I just don't remember if I left a spot for that or if the only spot for that is where the watchdog button is. Yeah, I think the spot for that is where the watchdog button is. So, well, yeah, but I could just include that in the system. So the watchdog logo would like shine on the spot, and then the flag would be on the spot, and it would be right under where you're talking. So when, and like that would be where the location. So all I have to do is rotate the Earth to that spot, and then take the picture of it, and then do a setup protocol that I do with the picture to layer it into the final result. But it should be the kind of thing that I could do a slew of them in 10 minutes or less. If once I, have the system in place, you just tell me the locations, I look them up on the internet. It might take 15 minutes, including looking them up on the internet and stuff, if you give me like 3 or 4 locations. But a lot of times you might only have one global location anyway,
Yeah, well, especially since a lot of times I'll like focus on, like, if I'm doing an episode where I'm talking about Canada, I'll have like 3 Canada stories in a row.
Yeah, I could jump around different spots of Canada, though. Canada's big.
That's true. Canada's a big,
But,
big example.
Yeah, that is. So that's a cool gimmick that we could throw in, and anyone who can do it for you can do it for you, or you can do it for yourself. But I can only offer me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't guarantee I would never fail to provide you the custom thing, but you'll already have a universal one for global anyway. Plus, I could make an animated version, which would have the Earth rotating, and that could be your standard one. But before I started taking on animating it, and I was like, let's make sure CJ likes it enough. But also, before I take on animating it, you have to pick which one. Okay, I know you're eager to go soon. I have to take a break real quick and come right back. I can't even say bye to everyone. I guess there's only one person left at the moment, which is fine. I know where I derailed engagement, and that's okay. So I'll be right back.
Sure. Awesome. And for whoever is still here, I'll just say briefly thank you for being here with us. We certainly do appreciate it. The show's, not 100% really like a audience-centric show per se, but we still appreciate you guys nonetheless. Obviously, anybody who's interested and edified is, a positive, in our book. Man, I need to just not suck. Well, perhaps that's exactly what I'm doing, and that's why this is getting so tiring and stuff. But nonetheless, I'm gonna have to get to bed here at some point. I wish I did have some stuff to kind of chat with you guys for, and I do apologize for that. But I'm, just unfortunately kind of beat today.
Okay, I'm back. So let me see. Janet was back before I knew she was gone. No, I've just been... Yeah, so I lost everyone when instead of talking about like church stuff that they were interested in, I was bumbling the graphics. Like if the graphics had been ready and I'd gotten to the point easily, then they might have stayed, It's also getting really late for a lot of people. I'm at the early side of the continent here. So I'm speaking of that, I don't know if you have anything more to say, or I can move forward on the city one now then, and then I just need to know which one to do before I'll do an animated one, because I'm thinking I could do 60 frames, so it'd be 6 degrees per, and then hopefully that won't be too choppy and it won't be too fast. Otherwise, I'll have to do 60 more frames.
Right.
Because I'm thinking I'll literally just like rotate the Earth a little bit, take a picture, rotate it a little, take a picture until I've gone all the way around the globe, and then use all those pictures. There's different things online where you can make GIFs or whatever, different sorts of, the stuff where like some people like animate themselves, and stuff like that. There are particularly people I prefer not to talk about. So I'm like,
Right.
dang it, all of them. But yeah, so it could be a rotating globe in the background too. Then I would just have to like get the system down and then tediously do it 60 times, which isn't too awfully bad. And then, but it does mean that I want to know which one you want first.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll have to.
Oh, you'll need a better example. You'll need to see what that difference is with an actual screen share happening. And I'm not going to try to milk your last 10 minutes here and do it now. Because, I'm just not prepared. It would be, I can literally like make good visual samples and email them to you. And you'll see what the difference is between the one and the other. And I probably already sent you a lot of samples, but I don't know if I sent you the most updated thing. But you can just ignore that stuff. I'll just send you 2 samples to compare which shape you want. And then when you decide which shape of the window you want, then I'll hone it in from there. And then, yeah, so you see the concept and you have some idea of what level of quality it'll be because I did that shield, at least for the overlays, because they might not be as like the shield was pretty easy, you know what I mean? So they're not necessarily going to be as beautiful as the shield is. Like when the shield is a small YouTube icon, I think it's an impressive YouTube icon, and it's not often that YouTube icons are impressive per se, but I think it is one. So, but for the overlay, it's not necessarily going to be on the top professional level of like all professional levels that exist, which I would say aside from cartooniness of the theme or something, it kind of is the top level as far as the icon I made. It's not like you really, with that smaller graphic, you don't really hone it in more from there and make it more impressive from there, It's kind of as far as it goes. But the result you get here will be something that could be improved on. So then I kind of got to ask you, like, if you're not paying me, then I got to ask you, is this something that you're going to use for like quite a while, or are you going to be like paying someone to make the better version pretty soon, kind of a thing, So I think you have some pretty good idea of what they're going to turn out like, though, from the progression of the city one. I think you at least have a good worst case scenario idea, because that's what's already there, but better. And then for the planet one, you can see that that's going to come out. You can pretty much see how that's going to come out,
Yeah, absolutely. And
So in the planet one does look quite professional, just not quite as professional as like professional is different than good. You know what I mean? Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Like professional looks specifically like someone was paid for it who does that for a career. That's specifically what professional means, is to say it looks professional, Whereas the results I'm going to give you are going to be really impressive for amateur, and they're going to like be cool, but they're, as far as like graphic design, professional features, it's going to be stylized rather than professional, if that sort of makes sense. And then it's like, if I'm doing them for free, I want them to be used for like, I don't know, at least like a year kind of a thing or something before they get updated, But of course, if it were to be done any other way, then it's no longer my business, right? But it's like, if I'm investing my time for free, there is a certain point at which I'd be like, I don't want to feel bitter about having invested my time. Like if you replace them in 6 months, I'll be like, I did a lot of time for those to only be used for 6 months,
Right.
But like a year or more is a whole different story from 6 months. So you see what I'm jiving at. So yeah, I just want to know that you're going to want them for the good length of time before I go into all the hours of making them further than I have already.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if you know that for sure already, or if you have to review it a little bit.
Well, and I'm thinking I'm probably going to want to use most of them. I'm going to look over them a little bit more, and we'll definitely be able to talk a little bit more on it tomorrow too. But for right now, I'm thinking that I'm wanting to use the at least specifically the both of the overlays and
Okay.
kind
Well,
of look.
for the long term thing, yeah. The other stuff doesn't like have a proof of look yet for the 3D stuff, so that's more of a bigger discussion. I started the storyboard with pixel art. It's fun. So between the storyboard with pixel art and getting like a first 3D model done, there should be some good idea of where that could go. That's a way bigger project, and we got to talk about what all your different ideas are and stuff, because that one might not be worth my investment if it's not quite what you're thinking, you know. So it'd be pretty awesome to do that, and I do have an idea to sort of make it. I was telling you about it. Start with the 3D. So like that 3D brown in there, it would like provide what do they call that? A gradient. Do you know what gradient is in graphic design?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it provides like a gradient on the brown, and then I would use like actually drawing the 2D trench coat kind of a thing, you know. And they would have so it would have like 3D gradients that make especially good sense instead of just random gradients for the coloring or nearly random gradients for the coloring. But then also it'd be like this 2D look, but with like 2D, 3D look kind of thing, you know? So you know how like when they animate something that's semi-animated and it looks comic booky instead of cartoony, right? But it still has like motion to it. Like they'll have a non-animating guy like with his fist out, like moving fast across the screen, and then the other guy like moves, not animating, like his body's like laid out like he just got hit and he's flying through the air. And then when he lands, it might like animate into a landing thing with an effect. You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
You sound really tired. So do you actually know? I'll let you go. But did you actually know what I'm talking about? Even though
Yeah,
you're really tired.
I am. Yeah, I am following.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's kind of the look I'm thinking. So I have some stuff to show you that other people have done, and like that's really early on in that concept. And like you were saying, there's a lot that we would want to talk about for you to decide what you want to do, and for me to decide what I want to do, because I like doing this stuff, and it's like something I can do for fun as a hobby kind of a thing, you know. But it is a big decision anytime I'm putting time into something. I want it to be valuable. So that's the treat for me, is I can do this fun stuff and it's like valuable to ministry in some way, you know. And I don't have money to contribute to you at this time. I mean, it wouldn't be responsible for me to do that with it because I don't have income. But I can do other stuff. So anyway, yeah, you're obviously really tired. I really appreciate you, brother. And
No, and I appreciate you as well. And I'm sorry I couldn't be a little bit more awake for today.
I don't know. This has been really good because these meetings have been like, I really wanted to quickly, sort of get into some kind of zone as to a bunch of stuff that should be done, and for me to somehow, not for me to somehow be a real part of it, as in like I need to make value for myself and prove myself to myself or something, right? No, that's all on Jesus. But the whole thing is like, I just think I can help and I want to help, so I wanted to get serious about doing my best with it. And you really helped me do this phase of it. So I think this will be the last one of these weekly addresses. I think I wanted to get on the ball, but keeping on the ball, I think, is maybe something different. So I don't know. We can always change our mind, or we can do whatever we want. But right now, I'm thinking this is the last one of these. I know I'm trying to let you go, but I should ask you, what do you think of that, real quick?
Well, I certainly think that if they're necessary, we can definitely do them again. But if it's one of those things where it's not necessarily something that has to happen every week, then there's no sense in making it happen every week, right?
Yes,
So it's
especially you're so busy, you don't get to like flex around projects and different things. You gotta like. So it's really valuable for you to have this for something else. And with that in mind, I really thank you for doing this, because it would have been valuable to you to not do it also, So,
absolutely.
and okay, well, let's do a quick prayer. I wanted to start with one, and then I somehow my mind went stupid and I didn't do it. And Heavenly Father, I thank you for, of course, for Lord Jesus. At this moment, I want to thank you for Brother CJ and for a bunch of these good brothers and sisters who are in the side chat, who, even though I'm totally not a people pleaser, they're interested to just keep tabs with me with our church fellowship stuff, So it's just kind of fellowship. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate all the more, there's a lot more concrete stuff in there too. But CJ is very tired and I don't feel well, so we're going to keep this one short. But yeah, we just thank you, God. We really thank you. Amen.
Amen.
And everyone, just trust Messiah. Good night.
God bless.